Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining at Radio Livestream. If you heard a crash there, I was just moving a cable and the microphone fell over, so hopefully all's well. Thank you for joining this Radio Livestream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the idea that a few people are bandying about, that a new political is on the ascendant, and this political order is sort of being built around Russia, China, and India. Will that political order, assume it takes a more cohesive shape, will it replace, supplant, or indeed compete with the globalist imposed world order? So let's have a little look at that. If people are thinking, by the way, of further reading on the subject of the globalist world order and the inputs to it that have come up through the decades. The works of Francis Fukuyama, a former US State Department guy, operative, is something that you may want to look at. There's some interesting works that he's written. Now, you may not agree with everything that he says, but he raises a lot of interesting questions. The architecture of his arguments in terms of how he formulates them and the issues that could be considered are laid out rather well in most cases. Again, you don't have to agree with everything, but books such as The End of History, The Origins of Political Order, I can go on. There's got to be like half a dozen books or so of Francis Fukuyama. So I'd recommend for those who do want to read further on the subject that you get onto Amazon, have a look at some of the titles that he's authored, and consider reading some. You can find a few even in secondhand bookshops now. They've been around, or they've been in circulation long enough, so that's also a consideration if you're browsing through bookshops. Now, just having a look at this idea of Russia, China, and India becoming a new, or possibly a new political order. I guess it's possible. I can't see it, but possibly a competing group maybe. But let's have a look at the reality. If we look at the Western world, and we'll look at Europe, and including some of the newer states such as Poland and so on. But if we look at Europe, the United States and the wider Anglosphere, for example, Canada, Australia, that sort of thing, then the white Western world, not including Russia, controls, depending on whose numbers you want to look at in terms of sort of international wealth and international GDP, that sort of thing, controls, getting on for, say, 47% of world wealth. So we've got 15% of the population is organizationally and technologically advanced enough that they control, pushing on for half of the world wealth. Now, that may be diminishing on a relative basis, or there's no question, not maybe, it is diminishing on a relative basis. Now, if we look at the non-aligned wealthy countries, such as that are, you couldn't say they're in the globalist world order, nor are they aligned to any new political order, say Japan and Korea, places like that. They control, depending on whose numbers you're looking at, 6 or 7% or so of world wealth. And then the entire rest of the world, which is the remaining 6 billion, more than 6 billion people, they have the other half. So you've got, ballpark 1 billion control half the world's wealth, the other 6 billion control the other half. I mean, give or take. So now, if we look at the financial power of Russia, India, and China combined, so if we look at that, there's even the most generous interpretation of the figures would be those three countries have, say, 18% of world wealth. So they're financially not big enough to be causing, they don't have the financial mass or clout to really be dictating anything to anybody other than local region. Like the Chinese can push the Filipinos around or something. That can happen, but in financial clout terms, they're just not in the same league as the West, far from it. Now, similarly, the Chinese manufacturing sector, the Indian IT sector, and other services such as call centers and the like, they are totally dependent on the West for jobs. If the West could turn off the tap tomorrow and say, listen, China, we're not going to have any more manufacturing over there, and by the way, we're going to put tariffs and whatnot on your products, the Chinese economy would crash, in 5 minutes, as indeed with the Indian economy. The Indians rely completely on the jobs that the West gives them. Again, their entire IT sector would just vaporize. And they'd go back to being the mega basket case economy they were beforehand, instead of just the ordinary basket case economy. Russia's probably a little different insofar as they've got vast natural resources, natural gas, of course, being among them. Also, they do oil. They've got quite a bit of oil there. The grade of oil is not suitable for all applications. And Siberia has got a vast mineral wealth of everything from gold to you name it. But it's hard to get at. It's quite expensive to get at because of the weather there. But nonetheless, Russia's got a lot of natural resources. They could be far more self-sufficient economically than, say, China or India could be. They could do all their manufacturing locally, and or a lot of it. They don't have to import Western goods, and there's some, but there's not a lot of Western investment in the sense of Western jobs en masse being created in Russia, not in the same way as they are in China or indeed India, and certainly not anywhere near the same extent. So if the West pulled the jobs pin on Russia, it wouldn't be that big a deal. So now, the Russian supply of gas to Europe is, for a number of things, the Green New Deal that the globalists have forced on all the Western world, the fact that all local resources of coal and gas and oil either haven't been exploited because of, again, the Green New Deal issues, or they've been exhausted, or they're too expensive to get out of the ground. Things like coal and iron ore in parts of Europe now, they've all been mined out. You've got to go 1 million miles underground to get to the stuff, and the cost of doing that's just prohibitive. So there are some issues there, but Russia could be a big supplier of that. So I don't think the Russians are as exposed. Now, coming back to the idea of political clout, I don't know. I don't know if you'd want the sort of governmental, community, social, organisational structures and values of India, China, or Russia being imposed on us. It's bad enough with the fucking globalists imposing their shit on us. So, would we want any of them or any combination of their social control, political mechanisms? No, it wouldn't be a step forward. It wouldn't be an improvement. And the only improvement would be that they would openly, you guys ain't got no democracy. We're in charge. We tell you what to do. Not this pretense that the globalists have that we still have democracy and freedoms and a free press, when in fact we have nothing of the sort. But just looking at that, I don't think that group has the clout. I don't think they have a political or a social vision for the future that anyone in the West would find or would choose or elect to join or would find acceptable. So I don't see that there's either an alternative ideology or organisational governmental structure there or anything else. So. And again, there's just lack of financial clout. Russia being slightly different because of the vast resources they have, such as the natural gas, which, as you can see, the cutting off of that gas is causing all sorts of drama in Europe. But now coming to the globalist, well, I think the globalist world order, I certainly hope it is playing out its end game, or in the throes of its end game. God, I hope so. It's been a terrible step back for the West. Now, just a reminder, what the globalists are trying to do is to make the entire world and every person in it more or less an equal consumer, and having more or less equal purchasing power. So instead of having 1 billion rich people and maybe another billion people of mid-level wealth, and then the rest being too damn dirt poor to buy shit. You have to remember that in India you've got something like 1 billion penniless peasants. In China you've got something like 500 million, and in Africa you've got the 1.5 billion, and there's billions of penniless peasants around the world. So the globalists have this vision that if everyone can be brought into the globalist marketplace, everyone's buying the goods and services that are all owned in monopoly conditions by the globalists, by the way, then the globalists will sit atop this massive consumption pie and just get rich as the gold, the river of gold just flows into their pockets. That's their sort of ultimate vision. Now, to do that, they have to steal money from let's call it what it is, steal, without the consent of, steal money from the white people to give it to everyone else. And then it's all going to sort of equalize out in their vision, at least. So that's their vision for the world. But that means they have to crush, destroy, eradicate, and steal from white people, so that the white people just roll over and go, yeah, you can have all my wealth. Yeah, that's okay with me. I'd rather give you all my wealth than be called a Nazi. So this is the globalist shtick. Now, I think that's an thing. I mean, we look at the way they carry on in Britain. That's the globalists playing with politicians that were once sovereign, playing with politicians if they were fucking toys, children's toys in a nursery. I mean, it's just, I can scarcely get my head around it. The way that these sovereign nations just surrendered to these globalists is unbelievable. But that's the globalist thing. I think that's already entering its endgame. Now, whether its endgame will be advanced or hurried along or brought, moved into sort of prime position by this competition of the Russians, the Chinese, and the Indians, that's harder to say. The globalists won't brook any opposition to their globalist project. That's why they're so desperate to get rid of Putin. An independent sovereign state, and Putin said, I make the fucking decisions around here, not the globalists. You can fuck off. And that's why they're so desperate to destroy him. But in their desperation to destroy him, they're ultimately, I think, sowing the seeds for their own demise. And I hope that is so. And maybe this Russia, China, India thing will help it along a bit. Maybe Turkey joining in with the Russians now to do the gas distribution. I hope Italy breaks ranks with the European Union and accepts Russian natural gas. Giorgia Meloni, the new Prime Minister of Italy, as I understand it at least, has made it quite clear she represents the Italian people, not the globalists, but the Italian people. And we just need a few more countries or bodies politic, new parties to come in, new prime ministers, or existing politicians that are sick of being globalist flunky stooges, to say, nah, screw you, fuck off. I'm representing my voters and my fellow citizens. And if we get a bit more of that, then the globalist project is done. It's finished. And it can't come soon enough for me. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.